This is Firebase. I'm your host, Gary French. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking about a subject that so many of you are excited about right now, politics. Now, before you decide to turn off the television set, let me just remind you that here in Kentucky, we've got some important elections coming up. And I want you to make sure that you not only think about the person you're voting for, but as a believer in Christ, that you pray for the right candidate that you're voting for. In my lifetime, I've never seen such a stark difference between the left and the right. I used to say things like this: this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's not a white or a black issue. It's sort of an up or down, heaven or hell. And I heard someone say it like this recently: this is really a battle of good versus evil. And here's what I mean by that. We have to have in office, as Christian conservatives, we have to have people in office that not only espouse our beliefs, but who will endorse our beliefs. And I'm not talking about people that are in our hip pocket. I'm talking about people that stand not only for God, but stand for country, who believe in the Constitution, who will vote not just according to the way the political machine wants them to go, but will vote according to their moral fiber, and who will take a stand that reflects their constituency, but also reflects a staunch, committed understanding of what the U.S. Constitution is all about, and here in Kentucky, what the Kentucky Constitution is all about. Friends, we've got a primary coming up on Tuesday, and then after that, we've got general election coming up, where we're going to see decisions made that will affect not only our state, our nation, but the world. It's time for the church to do more than just pray, and it's time for conservatives to do more than just wring their hands. Friends, when we come together, when we join our hearts and allow our voices to come around one single objective, and that is this: I'm going to borrow from Mark Levin here, to crush the Democrats. I think that's exactly what we need to do. Now, from the almost 2 million households that we're able to be seen here in the Kentuckiana area, and those that view our shows in Malaysia and North Carolina and Tennessee and Texas and many other places around the United States, when they stream us or they're able to pick up to us, they know one thing about our show. We're called Firebase, a military artillery terminology, which means we target the lies by firing for effect with God's truth. And friends, it's time that we as Christians, it's time that we as conservatives take a bold stand for the things that we say we believe, and we do what's really best. And for that, we have to come together, not just around our diversity, but around what unites us. And I think what is uniting us is that we the people. Well, with that in mind, it takes me to our first guest this evening, a candidate for Senate here in Kentucky, Lindsey Tichenor. I met her probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I was impressed with her, primarily because she was able to espouse and voice the thoughts that I had about faith and about our nation. And recently in Oldham County, I mean that by during this pandemic, she was very helpful in leading the charge against the egregious mask mandate in Oldham County. Welcome to our show tonight, Lindsey Tichenor. Lindsey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a great honor, and I commented to you before we got started here, and forgive me. No, I'm not going to ask for your forgiveness. I see that you have your Donald Trump red on. Is that any kind of a signal there? Is it just saying that you're a conservative, or you're a Donald Trump conservative?
Yes, all of those things.
Hey, let's tell the folks that are watching a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up out here in Oldham County on a farm. My parents are still there today. Married my husband for 24 years. We have 4 kids, 2 in college, 1 on his way, graduating in a couple of weeks. And then I have an 11-year-old that I homeschool now. So I'm very busy. I have a lot going on, but there's no time like the present to get involved in politics and make a change for the better.
I could talk about the homeschooling issue. As a matter of fact, I don't want to chase this rabbit unless you choose to. I'm encouraging people to take their kids out of the government-controlled school system, because a lot of times these little mush brain kids are becoming antagonists against family values. Well, having said that and got that off my chest, help our folks understand what was there that prompted you to say, you know what, like that great theologian from the old TV show Bonanza, Hoss Cartwright, would say, well, dadgummit, Paul, we ought to do something. What was there about what was happening in our nation or in Kentucky or in Oldham County that says, I've got to run for office?
You know, just when all of the pandemic mess was going on, I kept just looking around and talking to my friends, and all of us had the same thought of what can we do about it? We felt helpless. And I would lay awake in bed and just pray that God would call in that put on Beshear's heart, our governor, to call in a special session so that our legislators would do something to stop it. And of course, he didn't do that. But they did come and meet in 2021 and had their session, and they didn't stop any of the overreach. And then they met again in 2022 for their most recent session, and they still didn't do anything. And so in that process of just realizing the government is more than happy to overstep, but then they don't give it back. Right. And then our legislators don't step in the breach there and fix what was wrong. Yeah. So as I was getting involved through the pandemic and really wrestling with our school over the mandates and all of the COVID policies that they were pushing on our kids without parental consent, I realized this issue isn't going to be fixed on the local level. As valuable as that is, there's some legislative stuff that needs to take place in order to stop what will come again.
You know, I'm so glad that you decided to do that, because there has to come that breaking point, right? When people say, all right, I'm hoping somebody will run for this office. I'm hoping somebody will stand against this. And you know, as a side thought, I've not met, and I talk with a lot of people, I've not met with a single person who will confess that they voted for Joe Biden or that they voted for Andy Beshear. Because when I'm talking to them about issues, about government overreach, they say, oh, I'm just not in favor of all this. I'm so against what's going on. But they'll continue to vote down party lines. Why do you think that is, Lindsey? Why do people, they'll bellyache, it seems, about a lot of problems, but they're not willing to do what you've done? You know what? Win or lose, I'm getting involved.
I don't know. I will say, now that I'm involved, I realize the amount of work and the amount of effort it takes to campaign. And maybe all these people who don't want to get involved knew about that before I did. But I think it's just so easy most of us just want to be left alone. We want to do our jobs. We want to raise our families. We want to go on vacations. We want to do all of those things that the American dream affords us to do. But at some point when you're going on vacation and they're forcing a mask on your face everywhere you go, what kind of a vacation is that? And at some point you have to step up and you have to step in. And we're watching that across the country. And these primary races in Indiana and Ohio that they had some great success with really patriotic liberty candidates who are just sick of the overreach. And we're watching people step up. We have a parent group here in Oldham County, and out of that parent group, there's 9 people running for office. Wow. And we've all just said, you know what? And this was the group that fought the mandates, that fought the masks. And then we said, now we've got to shift gears. We've got to get involved all at local level, state level. We have to get involved, and we have to step up from school board all the way up to state Senate. We have people running, and it's important. We all need to put that effort forward if we really want to see change. And so many people, it's easy just to complain. It's so easy just to complain. But nothing changes if you just complain. And honestly, nothing changes if you complain to the wrong people. I complained to our legislators, and nothing changed because they're not the right people. Yeah.
You know, I think, and I'm hoping that when the vote comes about and the primary is concluded, I'm hoping that you will be elected. I'm hoping that people see that you're wanting to run. Well, and I say that not for any other reason than I'm tired of the same old faces running, and I'm tired of the same old political bosses being in church. They may not see themselves as political bosses, but I think it's time for us to have some change. And we hear this nonsense about let's just reach across the aisle and let's find some common ground to agree upon. And I don't have any qualms with agreeing with somebody who may not believe 100% the way that I do. But from the Democrat perspective and even political bosses, I'm concerned about when they say, I want you to believe with me and forget about what prompted you to run for office. And your observation about what's happening in the nation is, I think, spot on. A friend of mine from Fort Worth, John Graves, who's the CEO of Million Voices. He's on Victory Channel a lot, one of their political consultants. He says that a primary that they had in the Dallas-Fort Worth area a month or so ago, only 10% of the population bothered to show up. And so with about 30 seconds here, what are you hoping will come out of the primary vote next Tuesday?
Well, I hope we have a really good turnout. And primary voting is usually low. But this year, from just talking to people, knocking on doors, people are more engaged than they've ever been in a primary election. So I'm really hopeful that people will step forward and show up at the polls and be more educated than they've ever been. Awesome. But we have a problem. Most people don't even know what a primary means. Yeah. We need to return
Lindsey,
to civics.
Hold that thought. We will be right back, folks, after this short break. Welcome back. We're so glad that you stayed with us after that short break. We're speaking this evening with a candidate for Senate from Oldham County, Lindsey Tichenor. It's not Tichenor, it's Tichenor. And Lindsey, when I see that and hear it's pronounced, a good German name, it should have an S in there. And maybe talk to your husband about why they dropped the S in that name. Okay. Hey, we were talking before the break about what your aspirations are and your hope are for the primary that's coming up in your election next Tuesday. Did you carry that train of thought just a little bit? And I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you.
Just talking with people, I think most, civics left. It became more of an optional class in the public school system. And I think
pardon me. You are absolutely right about the civics. Oh, big old amen from me on that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Carrie, go ahead.
We were missionaries in the Dominican Republic for 4 years, and our kids went to school there, and they had to take civics. Every year they took civics, and that was first grade, third grade. When we moved back home, my son was in sixth grade. So they had to take civics every year. And we got rid of that in America a long time ago. And we need to bring that back. I think when we're out talking with our voters, most of them don't understand what a primary is. So the low voter turnout is a result of that. We'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, I always vote Republican. It's like, okay, great. What do you do when there's more than one candidate? Do you just eeny, meeny, miny, mo? We need to learn, get back to basics and the importance of civics. I'm one of the chair members of our subcommittee for our Oldham County GOP education. And it's really was put together, that subcommittee, just to keep everybody up to speed on what's going on in our schools out here. But I kind of want to shift gears, and I want to start doing some education for adults and youth on civics. Why not?
Yeah. There's another friend of mine, Rick Green with Patriot Academy, has an awesome teaching program. I also challenge churches to, instead of giving, connect the dots and coloring books for their kids on Sunday morning and, grape Kool-Aid and chocolate chip cookies, start teaching about American history, U.S. history from a Judeo-Christian worldview. Let me ask you this question. I've got a couple of things I want to go into, but what sets you apart from your opponent? There's a couple of options here before the people that are voting on Tuesday. What sets you apart?
I would say what sets me apart is my convictions. I'm not doing this because the party handpicked me to do this. It's very much the opposite. I'm not doing this because I want a title. I'm not looking forward to the next great thing in my career. I have a lot going on. I'm a mom and I'm a realtor. This is not something I had on my list to do. I'm doing this because somebody needs to step up, somebody who's going to be willing to listen. And I think if you look at both myself and my opponent, we're just, one's running on credentials one's running on conviction. And I think your credentials are easily swayed if that's all you stand on, but your
Right.
convictions are deeply rooted.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you got there. What do you see are some of the big issues that's facing Kentucky right now? You made comment in an earlier segment about the our General Assembly, and I've
Mhm.
often spoken with them. I say, guys, we have a super majority.
Right.
Why do we allow the leftist, anti-constitutional governor continue to have his way? So I mean, you and I could spend an hour talking about that, but what do you see some of the big issues that we have for Kentucky?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I could probably talk to you a lot about that. As a Republican Party in general, I think we're always the ones to be the nice guys to cave and to compromise. And the left, and they don't compromise. They enforce their opinions on you and expect you to be the one to compromise. And I think our General Assembly having such a super majority, there should be no grounds for that. There's no reason. When it comes down to personal medical freedom issues, there wasn't a single bill that was passed to protect people from this vaccine mandate and COVID potential future COVID mandates or whatever the next pandemic is going to be. There was nothing put in place to protect them. You have workers losing their jobs, being discriminated against, not having their having to use their vacation time if they get sick,
Right.
and the vaccinated don't have to. It's wrong. And our legislators would not step up to that. Again, this is the
Yeah.
second chance they had to do that, and they didn't. And I think their issue probably has to do with, honestly, probably has to do with who's lobbying, who's got
Do
the
you,
loudest voice with the deepest pockets.
yeah, I think you're right there. Do you think that one of the big issues is that people are more interested in getting elected or reelected
Oh,
than
yeah.
they are in serving the people?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. We
It,
need term limits. We need to take away the incentives for people to stay in office for 20 years.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
no reason a person needs to stay in office that long.
You know,
They need to be,
for a part-time job in Kentucky,
yeah,
working in the General Assembly, that's pretty good money, as they say for some people, and they'll stay there and they stay there, and then they get the lobbyists that I have no way of knowing this, but it just seems like some people get, I don't know, extra paycheck from somebody. They have to be. That sounds very accusatory, and I don't mean it to be that way.
yeah,
I just want people like yourself, when you get elected, I want you to represent me.
right. Exactly. And I'm running on that message. I feel like we've lost the we the people model of our government. And it's
Right.
become we the business, we the lobbyists, we the corporation. What
Yeah.
about us? We the small businesses, we the employees, we the business owners, we're the ones who really sustain this economy, and we're not being listened to at
Yeah.
all.
I was asked to pray at Governor Beshear's first State of the Commonwealth address when he was first elected. And first of all, I said, "You sure you want me to pray? You can go find this on the record and videotape somewhere." And I said, "Okay, I did." And I said, "It's a shame." I prayed, rather, it's a shame that Kentucky is known more today about horse racing,
Yeah.
bourbon, basketball, whether U of L or UK, and KFC, than it is for what's in the Constitution of Kentucky, which talks about a strong reliance upon
Yeah, it
Jesus
does.
Christ.
Mhm.
The man who was vice president under Harry Truman, himself a Democrat, on his deathbed in 1956, he had been a representative here from Kentucky, but then he was vice president. On his deathbed, he says the highest honor of his life was that of having been a Christian, served the Lord Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And I think that's the heritage that we have from here in Kentucky. And what I see from what you're telling me, that's sort of the direction that you want the Commonwealth to go again, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Just the preamble of the Kentucky Constitution. We, the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of liberty, our civil liberties, our religious liberties, and political liberties. We've forgotten that so much,
Yes.
and it is probably a long-term battle that we'll be fighting against until
Yeah.
Jesus comes back, to be honest. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. You know, we've got an open border down in
yeah,
Texas that's affecting everything here. A few years ago, I was sitting at a table and Senator McConnell was on my right, and somebody to his right was just dogging his ear and say, "We've got to do something to help the illegals here become a citizen, because if it wasn't for the illegals, my farm would fold." And I had enough. And I said,
wow.
because he was talking about a pathway to citizenship, and I said, "Friend, we have a pathway to citizenship
Mm-hmm.
already. You need to stop hiring illegals."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I know this is a big question with, 30 seconds. Should we be concerned about our border down south?
100%. 100%. There are too many American citizens who are out of work. Why should any jobs be going to those who aren't legal citizens? And you have people who've gone through the process. They're typically your conservative Republicans because they don't think it's right that somebody can come in and just have amnesty and be able to have all the benefits that they worked for and went through that. It's not an easy process, and maybe it needs to be shortened and so people can become citizens easier. But
Lindsay, keep that thought. We will be right back after this short break. Welcome back. What a great evening we've had tonight, talking with candidate for Senate from Oldham County, Lindsey Tichenor. And if you haven't discovered in our short conversation thus far, you will discover very quickly she is passionate about her faith, she is passionate about her family, and she is passionate about Kentucky. Lindsay, does that sort of sum it up very quickly for you, just in a nutshell?
yeah, that sounds like me.
Well, perhaps you can use that on campaign if you want, and you don't have to give me any money for that.
Okay.
But, I think that people in Kentucky are looking for what you've been talking about, and not just freedom, but freedom to worship, freedom to have speech, freedom to believe the way they want to believe, and not someone that's going to just acquiesce to wrong views or surrender God-given values that we have. And sometimes we're quick to do that as Americans, and especially as conservatives, because we want everybody to like us. And here's what I've learned in my life. Not everybody's going to like me. I just have to know that God does.
Right.
I'm going to give you about 3 minutes here. And then if I have to interrupt you, I will. I apologize. But I want you to take the last few minutes here to talk about anything that we haven't shared, or to underscore something that we have, and maybe get a statement out there. Here's why you should vote for me.
I have become a totally different person through this process of the last few years and watching what's been unfolding in Kentucky and across the United States and really across the world. And I think it could have done two things to people. It could have totally shut them down and made them submit and become that type of person, or it could have put a fire within them to step up. And that's what I did. And I did that not because I was just a mad person. I did that because I kept asking God, what can I do? What can I do to be effective, to make a difference? And the more that I saw, the more I realized I had something to offer.
Yeah.
And I don't come into this with incredible accolades of corporate America or years and years of political experience. I don't. I come into this as a citizen who sees the need for change and the need for more people like me and more people like you, more people that are just like me to run for office. There's no reason I shouldn't be qualified to run for this office if I have it within me to do it. That's the only qualifier.
You make a great statement, and I guess I've got to chase this real quick about a citizen. And what you're talking about is a citizen politician. Flesh that out just a little bit. You didn't say it that way, but that's what resonated with me, a citizen politician.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a person. It's just, a mom. It's just a dad. It's just a employee somewhere. It's someone who wants to be a part of the process and a part of the system that hasn't played the game, right? And I think so much of us are so frustrated with politics in general because we're electing politicians, and politicians are going to sway. They're going to blow around in the wind and change to make everybody happy. But if we are coming in this and we're standing on the truth is a stubborn thing. It will always win out in the end.
Right.
And if we speak the truth and we stand on those convictions, then we can see some change happen in our country and in our state and in the world. And we cannot keep expecting normal politicians, the typical politicians, to do anything different than they've ever done.
Right.
They're just not going to.
You know, I think that's very valid. Now, people talk about truth, and there's no such thing as an absolute truth. And whenever I hear a low IQ person say that there's no such thing as absolute truth, I ask them this question: is that true? Because that statement implies an absolute truth. Yeah. With the last final 20 seconds or so, give the folks your website and how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, you can find me at lindseyforkentucky.com, also on Facebook at Lindsey for Kentucky. I have my campaign material out floating around, and I put my cell phone on there, and I mean it. People can call me. I want people to think that I'm available, because I am. That's the whole purpose of running. So reach out to me, contact me on my website, and I'll get back in touch with you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being with us this evening, folks. We've been speaking with candidate for Senate, Lindsey Tichenor. See you next week. God bless.